Greetings YouTube, welcome back to the MetaNerd channel. I am Marcus, bringing you another video for Cardfight Vanguard Overdress. Today's video, we will be talking about the card review so far this week. I will be splitting this video into two parts because there's too many cards that's being revealed throughout the week. For this video, we will be covering the Dragon Empire, Dark States, and also Keter Sanctuary. And as always, the timestamp is in the description for you to navigate to your favorite nation. Now let's get started for Dragon Empire. First on Dragon Empire, we actually have another order card, which is Sunlight Punishment. So in order to play this order, you will need to have one or more cards in your hand, and you get to choose any number of counterblasts and pay them. And then for each of the counterblasts that you paid for this cost, you are able to retire one of your opponent's rear guard. Kind of weird in terms of the restriction. So basically this is a potential board wipe, but the problem here is that if you want to have a board wipe, you will need to counterblast 5 in order to retire everything, which is not the best maybe, but it's an option, but not really the best. Even counterblast 2 to retire 2 I would consider a very heavy cost already, let alone counterblast 5. This card will definitely require a very strategic play because you will need to read your opponent's tempo, and therefore by using this card you will want to actually cripple your opponent's strategy or combo. I would see Dragon Empire players play this at 1 or 2. Please do expect that this card may be played just so that you're able to like counter it. Next is Stealth Rogue of Strife Fudomaru. He has one skill, Auto Rearguard. When this unit attack hits, cost, discard a card from your hand and draw a card. Of course, this card is most likely nothing too exciting, but then it does helps with the early game. If you do have a bad hand and you use this to hit, you can actually discard the cards that you do not need and redraw another card so that you have a chance of getting the pieces that you need. Most likely this is just a filler card, not really worth running. Next is Blazing Spear Dragon, the PR for D series. Its skill reads auto. When this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if your opponent has no units in the same column as this unit, counterblast 1 and this unit plus 10k power until the end of turn. This is a very powerful attacker, a meaty attacker at will when no rearguard is on the same column. When you want to play this card, you will have to retire one whole column in order to even use the skill. So this card will definitely require a setup. Plus, we do not really have a lot of cards that actually retire in the main phase. I mean, even Virina himself is retiring during the battle phase. You could use Sunlight Punishment to retire, but then including this unit as the cost, you will need to counterblast 3 to retire 2, and this unit will plus 10, which is, it's really too heavy. Moving on to Dark States, we have also another order. Crawl, you insects. So in order to play this card, you will need to play Counterblast 1. You will get Soul Charge 1 and then choose one of your units, and it gains 10k power until the end of turn for every 5 card in a soul. Means that if you have 5, that unit will gain 10k power. If you have 10 soul, that unit will gain 20k power. And if your soul has 10 or more cards, you draw a card. Cost for this order is weirdly cheap because Counterblast 1 does not mean anything in Dark States because not many cards in Dark State use Counterblast. So this card is really good, and most likely in the late game, unless you're playing Barrow Magnus, you will be able to get at least 10k power in the late game, and maybe you will get 30k power in the late game because you may or may not have 15 souls depending on your hand size. And what's more, he actually exchanged himself for another hand card. It's actually very good. Next on the list is Direful Doll Simone. Auto rearguard circle. When this unit boosts, if your soul has 5 or more cards, counterblast 1, and until the end of that battle, when your opponent will call cards from their hand, they must call 2 or more at the same time. This is actually a very pressuring unit towards your opponent's hand because if your rearguard is hitting for like insane number, they can't really like just use one sentinel to guard that attack. So for every time your opponent wants to call a card from his or her hand to guard, they will need to call 2 at once. You can actually play this with your Vanguard and rearguard attack since her skill is basically just boost. And this unit does actually provides you with a flexible attack option with Barrow Magnus. Because Barrow Magnus actually superior call 2 units from the soul, you can actually sacrifice 1 attack just to have this unit at the back of your very meaty attacker to have a very scary attack that turns. Next is the PR for Dark States. We have Direful Doll Violetta. Active in the soul, If your soul has 10 or more cards, cast Counterblast 1 and call this card to the rearguard circle. Overall, nothing much to really talk about this card, but then she is very slow because you will need to wait until you have 10 soul. Only then you are able to use her skill to call her out. And what's more, she needs to be in the soul, so you will need to do a lot of random soul charging just to get her skill up. Plus side of this card is that she helps mitigate the skill of Barrow Magnus, because at the end of the attack of Barrow Magnus, each and every rearguard will goes to soul. And this card can actually helps you call herself up the next turn if you do need an attacker. So it's kind of a plus, but then again, it's quite slow. Moving on to Keter Sanctuary, we have another normal order, a grade 3 this time. Swinging Sword of Judgment. In order to play this card, you have to Soul Blast a grade 3. Choose one of your opponent's rearguard. Your opponent put all of their rearguard in the same column as that rearguard on the bottom of their deck in any order. Just from this order review, we know that Reflux will actually increase in value because at the moment, Reflux is the only one that can actually move to Soul, and he's a grade 3. And in order to use this card skill, you will actually need Reflux. This will give Keter Sanctuary more field control options, and it is very deadly for Zorga because Zorga calls their things from the drop zone. So since this is putting their rearguards back to the deck, it's going to be quite hard for them to get them back. Next, we have the first triple R support for the TD, which is Heavenly Sword of Gorgeousness Alden. When this unit is placed on rearguard circle, cost Counterblast 2 and Soul Blast 1. Choose a card from your hand and call it to rearguard circle. If you call a grade 3, draw 2 cards. Second skill, Auto Rearguard. When this unit attacks, if you have 3 or more grade 3 units, this unit plus 5 until end of turn. When I first read his skill, he's actually a combination of Hour of Holy Judgment Cometh and Ramana. He has both the same skill as the grade 3 order in the TD, as well as Ramana, another grade 3. It's just that Ramana needs Counterblast 1 every time she attacks, while Alden is basically free of cost. So 2 cards combined into 1 is always very good. It means that you will have a lot more space to run other things. You can kind of already see why this card is triple R. And this will be a double-edged imprison unit. So if you're a Seraph Snow user, you will need to think very carefully if you want to imprison this unit, because Alden might be able to use his skill back when your Keter Sanctuary opponent actually free him from the prison. At the same time, you can actually like bait your opponent into calling him back to use his skill, which means more resources being wasted. There's a pro and con towards this situation, so it's up to you to decide whether or not you want to imprison this unit. Next, we have Darkstrain Dragon. Active rearguard. If you have 3 or more grade 3 units, cost Soul Blast 2, and all of your grade 3 units get boost until end of turn. This card just make calling grade 3 has value in Keter Sanctuary, because since it will give all of your grade 3 units boost, which means that most of your column is gonna hitting for 30k at the minimum if you have a full field of grade 3s. I would see people running this card at 1 or 2 at the minimum, because it does not really do much if you run at 4. So you just only like need 1 of him in order to activate the skill, and that's it. Again, Reflux increases in value once again, because right now he is the only one that actually provides Keter Sanctuary with soul. With this being needing 2 soul, we now understand that why Reflux was reprinted as a triple R in the special set. Lastly, for Keter Sanctuary, we have Prescription Angel. Auto rearguard circle. When your Vanguard is attacked, cost Counterblast 1, retire this unit. Choose a face-up card in your damage zone, call it to Guardian Circle, and put the top of your deck into your damage zone face up. Finally, we get some defensive unit skills for Keter Sanctuary. And one thing to note here is that she can actually use her skill to call a Sentinel from the damage zone in order to guard. So since the new Sentinel, the wording is no longer place and it's put, this card can actually functions together with the Sentinel. She will be a priority retire target if you do see her on the field and you do have retiring skill. Please, for the love of God, retire her, unless of course your opponent does not have counterblast or there's no Sentinel in the damage zone, or rather triggers in the damage zone. And that is all for the card reviews for the first 3 nation. I will have the other 2 nation uploaded later. Expect to have 2 videos today. Do let me know what your thoughts on the card review so far. Like and subscribe if you like this video, and I'll see you all on the field.